Hey, my name is Miss Hendershot, and I'm excited to be teaching your 9th or 10th grader in English 1 or 2 this year. We have some safety procedures that we have in place in my classroom to keep your students safe and healthy while we can educate them as much as we would during a regular school year. So, of course, we have seating charts and we have procedures for turning in work, entering next in the classroom, to make sure that we have minimal contact between students and to make sure that not every student is touching every paper like we would if you turn in work. So we just put all work in a basket to keep it hands-free. We also have Germ-X, and I'll wipe down the desk throughout the day. Okay, so a couple of goals that we have this year for our 9th graders in English 1. We have personal improvement plans, which we established in class, and we also have district assessments October, December, and March. So about quarterly, they align with the 9 weeks test. We'll be assessed by the district to see where we're at. Pretty similar for English 2 in 10th grade. We have personal improvement plans and district assessments. We also have the MAP state test at the end of the school year for English 2. So that's pretty significant that we need to remember. In addition to 9th grade, it says in the handbook that 9th graders may not be classified as a sophomore next year if they do not pass English 1. So that's pretty important right there. And a quick look into how we're going to achieve these goals. We have things called book talk books where students check out a book out of my personal library, and they're required to read so many pages throughout the semester. We do AR. Student tracking and individual improvement plans, which I touched on. Also post my notes and PowerPoints to Canvas. This is important if a student has missed class or on those AB days, it gets really confusing for students. So they're always able to look back to Canvas to see which notes we covered in class the day before. Also post practice quizzes to Canvas before tests so they can get on there and practice to study before the test. We're also blessed with Chromebooks in my classroom as well. A couple of classroom goals that we have: each student is required to read 400 pages of young adult literature by May. This improves vocabulary and reading comprehension across the board, so this is also very influential in their other classes as well. And each student will retest and improve at least 2 skills each semester. So all this means is, I mentioned that we reflect back on our past work. We'll take a couple of days out of class to do so. And as we're reflecting, we see, oh, I need to improve this, or I have room for improvement here. Students are required to retest with me, and there's incentives and stuff with that as well. And ultimately, to pass the MAP for English 2 students. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to me. I can't wait to talk to y'all and get to know you. I'll be doing that through school status pretty soon, so watch out to hear from me. This is my email if you need it. And my planning period is 7th period. If you need to plan, or if you need to come see me about anything, please call the office. Ms. Bounce will be glad to set up an appointment with me during this time right here. And your student is also highly encouraged to sign up for Remind 101. I use this very often as reminders for homework, tests, things like that. And I'm really excited to have a piece of your heart this year. They're very quickly becoming a piece of my heart. So I'm excited for a great school year, and I can't wait to continue with your students.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Jacobs, or Coach Jacobs. I coach here at Scott Central and also teach science at Scott Central. So this year I'm teaching biology and earth science. And so I just want to start out by talking about a few things that I think you as parents and students need to know about me. All right, so I expect that every student will try their best. All right, I believe that with a strong knowledge of science, students, they'll get to be comfortable and successful adults. So, real simply, like, I have rules in class like most other teachers. I want to be respected, and I want them to respect each other, including our time. Like, school is for learning. This year we have limited amounts of class time with students currently, so don't waste class time. Class time is for learning. That's one of my biggest things. All right, consequences is pretty standard. First time a warning, second time might be a written assignment or phone call home. Third time, which is always my last resort, is office referral. I always try to work out discipline issues with my kids first. Now, if that's impossible, if that proves to be difficult, I'm gonna come, I'm gonna send it up a notch. I'm gonna send it to the next step, whether it's you or Mr. Thrash or Mr. Overstreet. All right. So parents, like what I want you to know about me is I want you to be involved in your kids' education. I want you to contact me, email me with questions or concerns. If you feel like I did something wrong, please come talk to me. All right. I also want you to know if your child's taking biology with me this year, it's state tested. And so in high school, the state tested classes must be passed, and they also must do, they must pass the state test in order to be able to graduate. So that's like the biggest thing of this whole presentation is I want y'all to know your kid must pass the class, and because it's state tested, they must pass the state test in order to receive their diploma. And then lastly, the resources that I have this year to work with is we have all kind of new digital resources we're using, but my test and most classwork are going to be given through the Canvas app. And so if you have any questions or concerns, just contact me. Thank you.
All right, my name is Coach Sigrist. I teach Algebra 1. So I have all the 9th graders, and I have one section of 8th graders that I teach Algebra 1 to. So general information, Algebra 1 is state tested. So the state test must be passed in the spring in order to graduate high school. Once we start doing normal days, we will have homework 2 to 3 times a week. Right now, I don't see some of your children 3 times a week, but in general, that's the way it'll be once we move forward. Math does build on itself, as you know, so it is very important not to fall behind. And so if you struggle on one test, then more than likely it's going to be a struggle, or even worse, on the next test if there's not some intervention. And we have ways to do that here, but it also may take some things at home also. We will learn some foundational algebra skills for the ACT. We're preparing you for that, for Algebra 2, and for college algebra. And I'm going to talk about the ACT just for a second because, as you know, that's where money is for college. And so the ACT, it always has 33 algebra questions out of 60 total questions. So 33 of them are algebra. And your breakdown is 14 are pre-algebra, which 9th graders should already be familiar with that type thing. And then 10 of them are based off Algebra 1 material, and then 9 are Algebra 2. So there's lots of algebra on the ACT, and we're either teaching the exact kind of problems in Algebra 1, or we're preparing you to do those type problems later on in Algebra 2. The remainder of the ACT math part is 23 geometry, which will be taken as a 10th grader for most. And then there's only 4 of the advanced questions on the ACT. And there's always 4 of those. So we're preparing you for state test in May, late April, May. But we're also in Algebra 1 preparing you for courses that they'll take later, and then ultimately for the ACT as well. Curriculum, to me, the most important thing is listening closely in class and doing all assignments. If they don't do the assignments, or if they copy somebody's or whatever, it's going to show up on tests because they haven't practiced. I always tell them when we're going over homework that if they didn't do the homework, or if they have nothing on their paper, or if they copied somebody's, then I have nothing to say to them and they have nothing to say to me, because it's so important to go home and work and battle with problems, even if they don't get it right, and then they can ask questions. But they can't do that if they didn't really do it. We will use e-math instruction. That'll be the main workbook that we'll use, and we won't really get into that until after fall break. It's when you'll start seeing some. I might actually be making copies of the workbook, and they'll be sent home. And there's also an online component to that, and they can bring up those worksheets at home as well. Let's assessments, we have benchmarks. We have 3 benchmarks through the year, and that just kind of tells us kind of where we are, and we start trying to predict what kids will score on state tests. So the first one is always right before fall break, which would be early October, but this year it's being moved back because we haven't seen students enough really to have a benchmark yet. Now the good thing about that is the state test teachers, most of us are finished by spring break is normally our goal, so we have some cushion, even though we would still like to be done by spring break. We probably will not be this year, but we have some cushion to still have students prepared by the end of April or early May. So this year's benchmark number 1, that is normally early October, will be late October, early November. That's kind of when we'll be finishing up covering first 9 weeks material, even though that's on in the second 9 weeks. So that's going to work out good. We'll have 2 more benchmarks, and these benchmarks come from the county. We're using Case 21 is the test company that we use, but it's from the central office, and all Algebra 1 students will take the same test throughout the county. And we'll have another one, usually early January, and then we'll have another one at spring break. And that's just helping us kind of see where our students are. And they're very good tests, and they're very helpful. State tests, so the big boy will be April, early May, late April, early May. Usually early single-digit May is when our state test will be. Each student must pass the Algebra 1 state test to graduate high school, and I don't think that'd be a problem as long as they're doing their work. Then we're not just trying to pass it; we're trying to make advanced or proficient. That's our goal. So hopefully, passing is a breeze. Just a couple last things. Other information, calculators. They have been issued calculators, if you didn't realize that. Kind of like a textbook they sign saying that if they lose it or damage it, it's $120 because they are expensive. So they have been issued those, and they can take those home if they need to. Just be careful with them. So they don't need to buy any kind of fancy calculator or anything for Algebra 1. Active parent and active student is up and going. So if you do not have a password or login to get into active parent, I suggest that you do so you can keep up with your child's grades. We sent progress reports home, but with this you can get a progress report at any time. So that's very convenient, and plus you can stay on top of things before they dig themselves a hole and you don't know about it. And then virtual learning. If your child is virtual learning, just please make sure they're logging on, and please make sure they're doing the work and things like that. There's a lot of responsibility put on their shoulders and even your shoulders. So state test is state test, and ACT is ACT, and college requirements are college requirements, and if they're virtual learners, they've still got to cover all that ground to be successful in education. So thank you.
Hey, I'm Wendy Tedlock. I teach world history. In world history, we're going to cover events all the way from the Enlightenment through current events. And these events correlate directly with the U.S. history class, which they'll have in the 11th grade. That is a state tested area. And I kind of do things a little different. We do research-based learning, and then turn all of that research into presentations so that they can show how much they've learned. And I try to make it exciting for them, a little bit different than your basic just textbook style learning. So hopefully we're going to have a great year with lots of new information learned. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Miss McDowell. I teach advanced world geography, 10th graders, 11th graders, and some seniors. And some of the required things that I need them to do is to bring a binder, some highlighters, colored pencils. We're going to be working with maps and things, and so we need some materials to do that with and to stay organized. I lecture. The students will also work in small groups. We'll do whole group discussions. We'll also debate topics. They'll do some research on real world issues in the world today. We'll view plenty of videos, and they'll have plenty of mapping activities to complete. And also we have new online course this year through Canvas. Most of the time Their activities will be done at school. Sometimes they will have to work individually at home on their own computers, but so far all of my work has been paper and pencil. About this course, we talk about places on Earth, how they're unique, how they're similar. We talk about migration and challenges in the folk culture and popular culture. We discuss languages and how languages have distributed across the earth and why some languages have not survived through time. We even talk about how religions are distributed across the world and ethnicities are also distributed all over the world. There's challenges with our business and industries and our farmers throughout the world. And we also discuss the difference between rural and urban, and we talk about our energy resources in the world and many, many more topics, but that's just a small overview of what we'll do this year. It's a year-long course. The students will get 1 credit that they will complete, and I look forward to having a great year with your students. If you need me for anything, of course, you can always send me an email or call the school during my planning period, and I'll be happy to talk with you if you have any questions. Thank you.